You know, men, we want a job done right, and we want it done quick. What do we need? More power! Darn right, more power.
Hello everyone, welcome live to 3Wide TV Tonight, special broadcast of the More Power 150 presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. I'm Peter Short, and joining me in the booth here tonight is Greg Rentz. And Greg, no discussions here tonight about the high downforce, low horsepower packages. No. We're going to be talking about high horsepower, slick racetracks all night long. These Cup cars are going to be very difficult to drive, and it is going to be one heck of a race.
Peter, I don't know where you found the time machine, but I'm so happy you did, because we're going back about 10 years ago to Homestead-Miami Speedway, circa 2010, 2011, 2012 era, the car of tomorrow. Here for a special event on 3Wide TV, the More Horsepower 150, 100 laps of racing here, when you see it on screen right there, as Corey Silva goes by in the Jeff Gordon Drive Down and Hunger AARP entry. This is not the normal Cup cars. This is the kind of Cup cars that was racing back in 2010 to 12, all the way back to 2007. These cars put on a heck of a show at this racetrack every single year as the finale, and we are so excited to get this opportunity to bring you a little bit of a something different here on 3Wide TV tonight. Homestead-Miami with the car tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun here around this racetrack. We're watching the man right there, Corey Silva, in the number 24 machine. In fact, one of the drivers here who helped put this whole thing together, and got to give him a huge shout out, as well as our friend Mark Cohn, also putting this race together as well. Mark Cohn, of course, of the DMLC Racing Channel. Great group of people putting this race together for the fans, and we're definitely going to see that number 24 machine very, very fast, as he is up near the top of the charts here in practice.
Corey Silva, he was so excited about the opportunity to drive this very car that you're seeing him wheel around right now. When it was first announced that, okay, this race is happening, Corey Silva said, "You guys are going to be in trouble when I come here with this baby," and he posted this picture right here of the number 24 Drive to End Hunger. This was an amazing paint scheme too, Peter, because remember, this car that he's driving right now, this was the first time Jeff Gordon drove a car that did not have DuPont or Axalta on the hood as the primary sponsor for the primary seat, or the primary sponsor for the season. This is a very unique paint scheme. A lot of fans had to buy this diecast because they knew this was the new primary Gordon car moving forward. So a paint scheme with a lot of meaning to a lot of people. Awesome to see Corey Silva have at it tonight in this car. But I've been looking through the field. There are so many awesome paint schemes that really just feels like we're back in time 10 years or so, as you see some of them on pit road. This just feels different than what we're used to seeing with the current Cup car package on 3Wide TV and other iRacing channels. As you see right here, we see kind of some Denny Hamlin vibes on that one, but with the 17. Here's the number 92 of Chris Lanini on screen right now. Also, this is a combo race. We have some of our drivers from our usual Tuesday night broadcast, the American Sim Racing Series, but this is a combo race with another series that races around on iRacing, the Lionheart Series. So several drivers from the open wheel ranks of Lionheart hopping into these car tomorrows tonight, Peter.
Yeah, and it's going to be a struggle for some of these drivers here tonight, because these cars are going to be very difficult to drive. In fact, let's see if we can break down the race for you here tonight. It's going to be a 100 laps, 150 miles around the Homestead-Miami Speedway. And that second bullet point is very important here tonight, Greg. A fixed setup. All these drivers are going to be driving it, but it's not a good setup. It's purposefully not a good setup. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, they had the hard-to-drive 300 at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Well, here tonight, very similar setup. Going to be very tricky for these drivers to spend all 150 miles around this joint going straight. And for that reason, there is one faster pair, 3 tire sets, as number 44, Michael Whiting there gets loose coming out at turn number 2. Here comes Corey Silva and that number 24 machine leading a herd of cars down the backstretch. But we are going to have one attempt at the green-white checker, but most importantly, right down there at the bottom, 900 horsepower here for these cars here tonight.
You mentioned the setup. I want to hit on that a little bit more. You said it's not good. These cars are hard to drive. I don't know how many starts you've made over the course of your sim racing career as a driver in these cars, but I've only made one start in this style of car. It came at Dover, and I had one word for it: wow, because this car is difficult to drive. And for these guys to be fighting this thing for 100 laps, I commend them, because that is a lot of horsepower and an ill-handling race car on top of it. These guys are going to be up on the wheel, and we're going to see these guys with some white knuckles by the end of this one.
Yeah, without a doubt, it's the number 4 machine right there of Daniel Gutierrez. Pulls that machine right down there onto the bottom of the racetrack. You mentioned white knuckles. These cars definitely lead to white knuckle driving, and as someone who has been on the iRacing service now over 10 years, I remember when these things were the Cup car. These things were the A-Class car, and it meant something when you got to the A-Class. It meant you could actually finally tame these beasts, and they're not easy to tame, and they're so much more difficult than the modern Cup cars here on iRacing, but they're even more difficult than the B cars. They're more difficult than the C cars. I remember at one point the Super Lates were very difficult to drive because you had to get all that horsepower down. These things are just a handful to drive, as we see the number 72 there. One driver who is very familiar here on 3Y TV. That's Michael Krobach throwing out the trading paint scheme here this week as he pulls down there off the racetrack, trying to find a little bit of speed. He's currently just outside the top 10 here on the practice charts. But how about the man who's leading the practice charts right now? That'd be the number 66 of Justin Weaver, who has a 0.04 of a second lead over the number 68 of Mike Razimus, one of the drivers who's hanging out with the Loud Pedal Motorsports crew here tonight. I know, Greg, we see Loud Pedal Motorsports quite a bit in the American Sim Racing Series, but great to have Mike Razimus here on board for this race tonight.
Absolutely, Peter. And Loud Pedal Motorsports is represented in the Lionheart Series with Michael Krobach and Brian Yazik. Brian Yazik, of course, was the winner of the All-Star race, the last broadcast here on 3Y TV for the ASRS in 2020. Moving forward, of course, here into 2021 with some new plans for that in the future. But it's awesome to see two great racing series come together and put together an event like this. 100 laps going to be the distance tonight. I'm so excited to see it, as you see some Jimmy Johnson vibes. I think that's some Denny Hamlin up there, if I'm seeing that car correct, as I'm keeping my eye on Justin Weaver right now, getting some work done to his number 66 car. Yep, that is the number 17 of Daniel Knight, who's running a Denny Hamlin inspired car here tonight. But Peter, want to talk again just about these cars, because it's just so unique. We don't see many races with these cars anymore, and as the round goes, Knight, and you're seeing it right there, just how difficult these cars are to drive. But you don't see a whole lot of races with this style of car, and because of that, a lot of these drivers, they're running paint schemes that they haven't seen in a while, because you just don't get an opportunity to race these cars very often. There's no more official racing with these cars. If you want to race it, you have to either start a league or do what this is tonight, a hosted race with just a one-off as we go on board. We're getting ready to start qualifying, but these cars are just so rare on the iRacing server anymore. They're still all there, and it's one of those cars that everybody who gets an account has it. You just don't see it in action anymore, so it's a lot of fun to be able to do this tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. It is going to be a lot of fun here around this racetrack. Let's ride on board here with the number 24 machine of Corey Silva in the top 5 in practice, which just wrapped up. As like you mentioned, Greg, we're now over in the qualifying session for this race, and qualifying might be important. It's only 100 laps, 150 miles, and you can just kind of see it's a little bit slippery with that number 24 machine. I had a quick word with Corey Silva prior to the race, and he said, yeah, we're going to see a lot of drivers struggling here tonight with the lack of grip. And look at him, he's still sliding that thing. You can see how that thing just unable to find any grip up off the corner, and that's a lot of fun. We had that intro video prior to this about how much fun it is to drive these race cars slip sliding around the racetrack. I can tell you what, Corey Silva is having a whale of a time behind the wheel right now.
Oh, this thing is so much fun to drive and just rip around this track. And much like what we're seeing with the current cars, the car tomorrow, you're going to see guys moving up top throughout the course of the race, because that is still the high line, is still the preferred way around this racetrack on the long run, as Silva gets right up next to the walls. We now begin to go through the field. So far, 14 drivers have taken time. Silva currently sitting in the 4th spot. So expecting these guys to get their laps in early, and I'm expecting more of them to go out and just keep turning laps even after they take the checker flag, just for a little bit more seat time to get ready for this race.
Now let's talk about the current weather conditions. Air temperature 78 degrees Fahrenheit, but that track temperature at 109 is going to be very hot, and we're going to see that very, very slippery. We're focusing on the man who has gone to top of the chart. That's Jordan Harnish in the number 10 machine. Great lap for him coming out of nowhere. He wasn't too far up the timing charts in practice, but currently a 33.444, and that man right there is on the provisional pole with 7.5 minutes left here in the qualifying session. But 109 degrees Fahrenheit, that's just going to make these cars more difficult to drive with that current track temp.
Peter, I want to talk about Jordan Harnish's time right now. You mentioned a 33.444. His practice time, 34.445. So he is running very, very consistent laps. But he had quite a bit of damage on the right side of that car when he pulled on the pit road. So he caught the wall at some point on his qualifying lap. That's not something you want to do in the race as qualifying continues. Here with the number 92 heading out on the track, Chris Lanini. He, I believe, is on his 2nd qualifying lap as he currently sits 11th on the charts, 33.713, the lap that Lanini has put up right now. So 20 cars gone out thus far, but a familiar name for the 3YTV viewers on top of Jordan Harnish. Then you find a few more of the Lionheart guys, Mike Rasmus and Chris Lanini and Steve Yenish in the number 27, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, before you see Daniel Knight, another Lionheart guy. So right now it's an ASRS regular up in the pole position, but then the remaining top 5 drivers, they're all Lionheart drivers.
And we're going to go on board with a driver who splits his time amongst both of those series, between the American Sim Racing Series and the Lionheart Racing Series. We're on board right now with Mark Cohn, one of the drivers who put together this race. The man behind the DMLC Racing Channel, going to go P14 on his first lap, trying to pick it up on lap number 2. You see him dip right down there to the white line and then wash up the racetrack a little bit. And that's one thing we haven't talked about here so far in the show, Greg, is the fact that this racetrack has progressive banking. So we're going to see some drivers right down there on the white line, shortest way around the racetrack, and then we're going to see some drivers drift up the racetrack, which we see Mark Cohn doing here, trying to stay off the wall and not going to be able to do so. So that will invalidate his 2nd lap. He will stay 14th on the board right now. We have 21 drivers who have taken time, 5 drivers yet to do so. Todd Kirkwood, Jason Stewart, Adam Young, Steve Buhala, and Justin Weaver, the 5 drivers not out there right now. So we'll see if they work their way out there onto the racetrack. But I'll tell you what, Greg, going to be a fun one here at this racetrack here tonight.
Yeah, ever since this race was announced, I've been looking forward to this, because this is, again, something unique, something you don't get to see very much anymore on iRacing. And looking forward to seeing how the mix of ASRS drivers versus Lionheart goes. And Loud Pedal Motorsports is bringing the heat. I think Loud Pedal Motorsports, I saw a combined 8 cars in the Loud Pedal Motorsports camp here tonight, made up of course, your drivers you see from Loud Pedal here in the ASRS: Woody Mahan, Mark Cohn, Michael Krobach in the number 72. And then you've got the rest of their Lionheart camp. So there is a ton of guys from Loud Pedal Motorsports here tonight. Very, very potent in both series. And I would not at all be surprised if the winning car came from the Loud Pedal Motorsports stable tonight.
And let's see if we can catch a word with one of those drivers from the LPM stable. That would be Mark Cohn himself. Mark Cohn, Peter Short, 3Y TV booth. Hey, bud, you got a copy?
Yes, loud and clear.
I'll tell you what, Mark, of course, one of the drivers that helped put this together here tonight, and of course, the DMLC Racing Channel jumping on board to sponsor this race here tonight. Going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it up here in the booth, but how about you down there in the car?
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, we're talking 900 horsepower, not allowed downforce. You can't even go full throttle on the straightaways. This is going to be an absolute hoot.
Well, you're going to be starting back there in around the 14th position. We'll see whether or not your 14th spot qualifying time holds up for now. But, starting back in the pack, you're going to be back there with a bunch of cars. What are your thoughts about trying to work your way forward? Are you going to enjoy hanging around all the other cars, sliding around?
I just want to survive until the end. It's going to be very tough. These cars are not easy to drive whatsoever. And I don't feel like I've got any kind of pace, so we're just in it to have fun.
Well, to finish first you must finish. And that could be the name of the game here tonight. Of course, these drivers do have one faster pair, but there is a prize on the line here tonight. And of course, you are the one giving away the prizes here tonight. So for all the people watching at home, what are the prizes? Let them know.
Well, for the person that's lucky enough to win, they are going to get a watch that's been handpicked by me. And for whoever finishes with 0 incidents, they will be entered in a raffle where, again, they can also win one watch. So that's going to be pretty cool.
Well, if you have any of those calculator watches laying around, I am an engineer, so, you can get one of those old school 80s style calculator watches and send it my way so I can look all really cool at work and stuff. But hey, Mark, I'm sure you're going to be giving away some cooler watches than that to the winners here tonight. Very cool to have the DMLC Racing Channel. I posted a link in the chat. So if you're just joining us in the chat, and we do have people in the chat, Aunt Kathy, we got Carlos Acosta, Tristan Maher, Alexander Vaughn, and others in the chat. Make sure you click that or make sure you click that link and like and subscribe to Mark's DMLC Racing Channel, because we really appreciate you jumping on board, Mark, and best of luck here in the race.
I just want to say quickly, 6 days ago, this wasn't even a thing. Just thank you to you, Peter, 3 Wide TV, Corey Silva, Sam Maxwell. Everyone just made this possible. All the people that showed up. It's pretty amazing what happens in sim racing, and I think this says something for it.
Well, I think everyone here wants to have a good time, and they know that they're going to have a good time. They're going to have a whale of a time with this 2009 car of tomorrow and this old Chevy Impala. So hope you have a good one here, Mark, and I'm sure everyone else will as well.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming out. Should be fun.
All right. Well, Greg, that's going to do it for our interview with Mark Cohn there prior to the race. He's excited for this race. I'm excited for this race here tonight at Homestead-Miami. This racetrack always puts on a fantastic show down there in Southern Florida.
Always one of the favorite tracks of the season for race drivers and race fans alike, because this is such a unique racetrack too. 1.5 miles, but a straight up oval, the only one of its kind, Peter, here in this one. This draws comparison to, you could say, a giant Bristol back in the asphalt days, even a Dover back in the asphalt days as well. About what you can compare it to. But the High Line is what I'm really looking forward to seeing with these cars, to see if it handles the exact same as it does with the current Cup cars and the Xfinity cars and the trucks and the stuff that we see on a normal basis on iRacing. I'm curious if the upper line right up against the wall is going to come into play like it does in these other races.
We have one last driver out there trying to put a time in. That would be the number 21 of Adam Young. But he is going to run out of time here in qualifying as the checkered flag does fly. And we will now move over into the race session. All the drivers will have to go out there and get out on the grid. I'm sure the 21 of Young was there trying to get a little bit of a good lap time in there in a little bit of cloud cover, but unable to do so as the time did expire. I'll tell you what, Greg, I think it's time for us to go through tonight's starting lineup, so take it away.
I will do that, and we have got a driver we're used to seeing on 3Y TV. We got Jordan Harnish, who just joined Loud Pedal Motorsports for the 2021 ASRS Hacksaw PC's Premier Series season, rolling off on the pole here tonight of the More Power 150 with Mike Rasmus next to him in the number 68 Pontiac Grand Prix with Miller Genuine Draft on board. You're going to find Chris Lanini in the number 92 with Steve Yenish in the number 27, making up row number 2. Daniel Knight and Creighton Carter more Lionheart Series drivers making up the top 6. You're going to find a couple drivers you're used to seeing here on 3Y TV. Corey Silva and Michael Krobach, 74 or 24 and 72, 7th and 8th. Nick Curling, a winner at Sonoma in Hacksaw PC's Premier Series competition, makes up the 9th spot, with Jeff Yenish rounding out the top 10, Peter.
Yeah, starting in the inside of row number 6 there in the 11th position, the number 84, Woody Mahan, one of the Loud Pedal Motorsport drivers. To his outside, the Brookside Equipment Sales, number 44 of Michael Whiting. Can't miss that bright yellow 44 here tonight. You might mistake it for Jim Foose with how bright yellow it is. On row number 7 on the inside will be the number 26 of Tyler Gruff, and to his outside, we just talked to him, Mark Cohn in the number 39 DMLC Racing Channel machine. On row number 8 on the inside, Joshua Biddle in the number 80 machine, with Scott Holmes starting to his outside on row number 8. And on row number 9 on the inside, Larry Orrin, a driver we often see in the Thursday Night Throwback Cup Series here on the American Sim Racing Series. He'll be starting 17th, and Daniel Gutierrez rounding out your 9th row. And rounding out your top 20, the number 16 of Michael Lark, as well as Brian Greenlee.
One of 3 drivers with Lowe's Home Improvement on the hood is Howard Strother Jr. in the number 21. He will be in car number 48, a Jimmy Johnson tribute, rolling off in the 21st position, with Adam Young was able to get 1 lap in that number 21, but he was the final car to take time. He will start 22nd. Drivers who are starting the race on provisionals include Justin Weaver, who was fastest in practice. Keep your eyes on him. Jason Stewart, another one of our Hacksaw PC's drivers and a winner in the Thursday Night Throwback Series. He's sporting a Joe Nemechek throwback tonight. Steve Buhala not able to make the call for this one, and Todd Kirkwood in the number 79 will start shotgun on the field. Peter, going to be a fun one. Yeah,
going to be a great race here tonight, and we'll see just exactly what these drivers can do. We thank all of you for joining us here on 3Y TV. We're two subscriptions away from 700 viewers. Can you get us there here tonight? Well, we'll have to find out. And we'll also have to find out who wins tonight's More Power 150 as the green flag waves and the 10 of Harnish already out to an early lead.
He had problems in one car with a big shot at the victory. Corey Silva had connection issues on pacing, had to get on pit road, misses the start of the race. He's back in the car getting ready to go out on track, but Corey Silva missing the start in the number 24 as Harnish able to break away early in the number 10, get out to the early lead as you see the field roll here over this 1.5 mile track. They're coming off of turn 4 right now. We've got problems. That's Chris Weaver in the number 66. Excuse me, not Chris Weaver, but that's Weaver in the number 66 having issues. Justin Weaver, and all of a sudden the fastest car in practice, he's going to be having his work cut out for him. The good news is he does have the fast repair.
Yeah, you do have one fast repair here in tonight's race, and I don't know if he actually got any damage from that contact that he had on the backstretch, so hopefully he can recover from that. We did have a couple of drivers out there not start the race, including, like you mentioned, Corey Silva, but I believe also Steve Buhala, Todd Kirkwood, and Steve Yenish also not out there on the racetrack. Finally, Corey Silva is able to get rolling in the number 24. They do have lucky dogs here tonight, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, up at the front, Jordan Harnish, your pole sitter, has scooted away from the number 92 of Chris Lanini. Oh, Lanini, they're having some contact with the outside wall coming out of turn number 2. I'm sure we'll see that plenty here tonight, Greg. But that number 92 looking pretty good here in the early running.
Yeah, we can expect to see quite a bit of that. Drivers up in the wall here to start this race off, especially in the early stages. And then as it goes on, I'm expecting to see it a little bit more right now. Doesn't look to be affecting Lanini right now in the number 92, but he's going to feel the heat from Rasmus in the number 68 before too long. Rasmus, again, sporting the MGD Pontiac on board the number 68 here tonight. Kind of unique seeing a Pontiac in this car as you see some battles going on deeper in the field right now. So all kinds of racing right now as you check in with Mark Cohn in the number 39, trying to make his way up. Biddle and Graf battling in front of him. So Peter, as this race gets underway, what are you noticing with the racing with this car as opposed to what we see nowadays with the current Cup cars and the current aero package?
Well, you know, one thing I really love about this car is the field spreads out. It really means that you got to be patient making your passes. You can't be tight up on another car, as we see the number 89 here of Jeff Yenish, trying to make a move there on the number 71 machine of Creighton Carter. But the field really spreads out with this car, and you don't get that pack racing like you do with the modern Cup car. And part of that's just you got so much horsepower, you got to be careful who you're running around, as it looks like we have another car possibly off the pace. Indeed, we do. It's the Chicken Pit number 38 machine of Brian Greenlee. There's quite a bit of damage on that car. Looks like he will use his one and only faster pair on that race car to get back out there. Meanwhile, Corey Silva has been caught by Jordan Harnish. That number 24 machine currently being scored 1 lap down, almost 2 laps down. So hopefully Corey can stay right where he is so he doesn't go 2 laps down. But here comes the number 10 of Harnish to try and put him 2 laps down. Oh, Silva's in the wall. That's not going to help. And just like that, that number 24 is in a heap of trouble. But we look a little bit further back in the pack. This is the number 4, Daniel Gutierrez, running with the number 44, Brookside Equipment Sales Chevrolet. In fact, really, they're all Chevrolets underneath the hood. That's the only car that iRacing had back in the day was the Chevy Impala. But that, of course, 44, driven by Michael Whiting. Very common appearances on the American Sim Racing Series, which we'll be bringing to you here next year in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. But a good start there for Michael Whiting, trying to go here for the 13th position on the 26th of Tyler Graff.
Yeah, and going back to what you mentioned about them all being Chevys, and again, that's what you mentioned there with this car all being Chevys, because that was all iRacing had. When we say he's in a Ford or he's in a Pontiac in the case of the 68, all that they did was they just put the nose graphics of a Ford or a Pontiac or a Toyota or a Dodge or whichever they chose on the car for this particular paint scheme. Again, they all are Chevys, but with the vinyl and the wrap jobs that they went with, they were able to make it a Pontiac or a Chevy or a Dodge or a Ford or whatever. Kind of like what we saw out of Larry Orn in the Throwback Series, the Boswell's Country Road Throwback Series, because he, remember, was in a Ford Thunderbird with the Chevy decals on it. We called it a Ford Lumina. So kind of the same theory going on here as you watch the number 87 of Jason Stewart roll around on the inside of Daniel Gutierrez. And I like that Joe Nemechek throwback that Stewart is driving around right now here, Peter. I always liked that car. It was simple and just said, hey, you know what? I'm just here trying to make the show and move on to next week. And Jason Stewart, he's trying to make it a show as he's already up 9 positions in that number 87 as you go on board with him, trying to make his way inside of Tyler Graff right now. And you know Stewie's going to make a move at some point to try to get himself up to the front. He looks to be doing just that.
Yeah, he's always one of those drivers that you can never count out Jason Stewart in any race, because he always does something different than everyone else, and sometimes it works out for him. And definitely one of those drivers you're going to have to keep an eye on here tonight with these 2009 Cup cars. Meanwhile, back up the front, you're not missing anything because it is still the number 10 of Jordan Harnish, who has a pretty good handle on this race car, at least right now. He's leading over the number 92 of Chris Lanini, who's running right there in the Thrustmaster machine, right in front of Mike Rasmus in that number 68 Miller Genuine Draft Pontiac Grand Prix, like you mentioned there, Greg. Kind of homage to the number 2 that Rusty Wallace used to drive back in the day. Very good looking paint scheme. And your top 3 have got about a second on the number 17 machine of Daniel Knight, who has kind of that FedEx look that Denny Hamlin looked from a couple of years back, but he's got Plan X on that race car. How about that? And you, boy, might have caught the wall a little bit. That might have been iRacing just saying he caught the wall. Not 100% sure, but he's running in the 4th position. And how about Nicholas Curling? Greg, rounding out the top 5 at this point, doing a good job. He's got Discraft on the side, of course, the Disc Golf Company, and great job there by that number 25. It's got number 10 on the race car, but it's number 25 there on the scoring pylon. So do apologize for that little bit of confusion. But man, did you see how much he was yawed out there right in the middle of 1 and 2? That's just showing how difficult it is to drive these cars.
That was always one of my favorite things about this car, is just how much of a skew they have on it. We'll call it the 10K for Nick Hurley, number 25 on screen, but again, the custom number feature allowing him to run number 10 despite Jordan Harnish being entered as number 10. So we're going to call it the 10K. here of Nick Curling. And how about that, Peter? We haven't seen Nick Curling since his win in the Hacksaw PC Premier Series at Sonoma back in June. It's been a while since we've seen Nick Curling on 3 Wide TV. The last time he was here, he parked it in Victory Lane. He's looking to do the same here tonight in the car of tomorrow. Behind him, we find Woody Mahan, and still the familiar Mahan Speed Laboratories Purple on board the number 84, but he's got company behind him in the form of Jeff Yanish in the number 89 and Michael Krobach, the 72, back there as well. Creighton Carter also back there in number 71. So quite a few loud pedal drivers right up there in the mix with everything.
Yeah, that number 71 right now running in the 8th position right there in front of the number 72 of Krobach. This is a good battle for really the 6th position. You kind of throw a blanket over these drivers. Meanwhile, the rest of the field's starting to get a little bit spread out here on lap number 15. Great job by the field. We have seen at least one car spin here in the early going, maybe a couple of cars spin. But beyond that, we're green for the first 15 laps. Of course, that could be the commentator's curse, just coming at you here on 3 Wide TV. We like to do that for whatever, well, we don't like to do it, but it happens a lot, for goodness sakes here. If you're a longtime 3 Wide TV viewer, you know that, and we definitely appreciate all of you guys in the chat right now, guys and gals, I should say, in the chat, enjoying this race here tonight. Meanwhile, Jeff Yanish running down the number 84. In fact, not only is he running down the 84, he's also running down the number 10 machine of Curling. And that would be a battle for the 5th position. And Jeff Yanish was very, very quick in the practice session that we had earlier today. Didn't quite get the qualifying time he was hoping for, but he qualified 10th. He's now running in 7th. Woody Mahan, he qualified 11th. He's now running in 6th. The biggest mover, though, Jason Stewart. And like I said, Greg, you can't count out that number 87 machine.
Now, you know he's going to take a gamble, because I feel like every series that we see on iRacing and broadcast has that one guy, that one driver who's going to take a gamble if he's given an opportunity. And for what we've seen, Jason Stewart is that guy. He's driving a Toyota Camry in the number 8 with the number 87 on the doors. You watch the battle continue between Mahan, Curling, Yanish going on. This is for 5th position, as Yanish able to now get to the inside of Curling. Mahan was able to get by Curling and now brings Yanish with him. So they will clear, and then all of a sudden Curling back to 7th as things begin to settle back down. Next up for Mahan will be Daniel Knight, but he's about 2 seconds back. As you drive through the field, I'm looking around and I'm seeing several Lowe's cars, including this one on screen, a Power of Pride entry here on board. 3 Lowe's entries tonight.
Yeah, and the number 26 and the 16 are locked in a battle. That is, of course, a battle right now for the 16th position. The 26 of Grolf has it. The 16 wants it, and looks like the 16 of Lark will be able to get past the number 26 and move up into the 16th position. So how about that? The 16th machine in the 16th position now, kind of matching his number here as we continue to run through lap number 19. Great start for the More Power 150 presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. Big shout out to them. I put a link in the chat a little while ago, so make sure you check that out. Jim Foose joining us in the chat as well, saying, Sam sent me on a vacation for the week, so I'm watching from the frozen tundra. Yeah, I heard something about Alaska there, Jim. Alan Young saying he's taking some time off, but he'll be back for another Premier Series championship run next season in his number 24 in the American Sim Racing Series. So definitely great to see that. But meanwhile, other things that are great to see, battles for the race lead, because Mike Rasmus has been able to run down Jordan Harnish.
Yeah, apologies about that, Peter. We had some technical issues on my side for just a second, but they have resolved themselves. As here we go, the 68 of Yanish going to work here on Harnish, going down into the turn number 3. This is what the car tomorrow was all about right here, getting up to the driver next to you and trying to outwheel him through the corner. We don't see this very often anymore, as Yanish able to take the lead in the number 68, and for the first time tonight we have a new leader. Yeah,
that's Mike Rasmus in that 68 machine, just getting himself up to the front. Jordan Harnish now going to slide back into second. Daniel Knight in the 17 machine's got himself up into third, and you can see a little bit of a wiggle out the back of the number 17. And what I'm starting to see here, Greg, You don't see this in the modern Cup cars all too much. But I'm starting to see drivers do a little bit of the coming and going because the tires wear so much with these old cars. In fact, the driver who's been the fastest on the racetrack over the last 5 laps is actually the driver in the 4th position right now, behind the number 17 of Daniel Knight. You see him right there in the purple number 84 Mahan Speed Laboratories machine. Woody Mahan has been lightning quick over the last few laps. He's actually been, like I said, the fastest race car out there. Creighton Carter in the 71 has been matching him, and Jeff Yenish as well has been very, very quick. So we're starting to see the front cars. Maybe they've burned up their stuff just a little bit, and we're starting to see the field kind of accordion back together, and I absolutely love that. I love that as a race car driver when you've saved your stuff a little bit and you know that you can then attack because you have saved just that little bit. It is a lot of fun, and I'm sure a lot of these drivers are enjoying it. Look at Creighton Carter there in the number 71 machine, trying to get underneath Chris Lanini. Lanini, of course, started up there near the front, and he's actually started to slide back just a little bit, now outside your top 5. Remember, he made some contact with the outside retaining wall and continues to get sideways coming out of turn number 2. There's actually a little bit of damage, Greg, on that number 92 machine. We'll see it here as we flash by. But remember, these cars, very dependent on downforce. They don't have as much downforce as the modern day cars, but just enough downforce that it can keep them planted, and you can see that right front damage.
And here's something else to think about, Peter. These cars, they are not used on iRacing as much as they have been in the past. So with that, they don't get touched up and fixed as much as the current Cup cars do. So they might have some issues with the air sensitivity that's in iRacing nowadays. But with that old aero package that they have that's been relatively untouched for the last few years, that thing could be even more of a bear than normal in that number 92 if he's not careful.
Yeah, without a doubt. Meanwhile, the 26 machine right there. That's Tyler Graff getting into the outside wall. That's going to open up the door for Scott Holmes down there on the inside line. That number 67 machine trying to pick up the 17th position, and he will do so. So a couple of positions changing hands here, Greg, and I'm not all too surprised with the way, like I mentioned, these tires are wearing. They're definitely going through a cycle right now. We're starting to see comers and goers, and this number 17 machine is trying to get up to 2nd position. You see him just absolutely sawing on the wheel coming out of turn number 4. Fantastic save. Just trying to get some rubber off the tires there down the front stretch, kind of weaving it back and forth. But Jordan Harnish in the outside wall, and that could open up the door for the number 17. You see him continuing to struggle with that race car. We mentioned it at the top of the show that one of the keys to tonight's race and the race breakdown, a fixed, not good set. And I think what we're starting to see, Greg, is that not good fixed set is starting to play some havoc on these drivers. I'm sure they're all enjoying it because they know how difficult these cars are to drive. But we're starting to see it, even out of our top 5, that these drivers are starting to struggle. Meanwhile, Jeff Yenish has got around Woody Mahan and got himself up into 4th.
Yenish now trying to reel in Daniel Knight, Harnish, and eventually Rasmus, would like to apologize to, because when he took the lead, I said Yenish. I was caught up trying to fix the technical difficulties on my end and lost track of who was who for a split second. So apologies there to Rasmus and his fans. But going back to what you just talked about, the setup being, quote, not good. The tires are getting pretty old as well, Peter. We're on lap 28, make it 29 as Rasmus crosses the line. So here's my question to you. You have 2 sets of tires ready for you on pit road. It's a 100-lap race. You've been green so far in this one. When do you come down pit road? You've got 2 sets of tires to use. When do you come down pit road and use that first set if we stay green for the rest of the way until this first pit stop cycle?
That's actually a fantastic question. I mean, it's really impressive that we've been able to go this long into the race without having a caution. We've seen one driver spin, but with how difficult these cars are to drive, it speaks to the driving talent, both in the American Sim Racing Series as well as the Lionheart Racing Series, that we haven't had any cautions in the first 30 laps as we continue to tick away under green flag lap after lap. But I've been looking at the tire fall off here in this race. I'm going to bring it up at the top of the screen where you can see the previous lap times. The fastest lap time in this race was around a 33.7, and now they're running 35.7s and up. So about 2 to 3 seconds of fall off with some of these drivers, some of them running in the 36s now. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if some drivers try the, pitting every 33 laps. And we see cars on pit road sooner rather than later because they know they have 2 sets of tires sitting on pit road as of right now. Meanwhile, I think we're going to have other drivers going to really try and push it. They're going to try and push it to the halfway mark as this battle for second place now heats up with Knight getting that second position a couple of laps ago from Jordan Harnish. And here comes the 89 of Jeff Yenish. So I expect to see some different strategies. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how those different strategies play out. As man, that 17 again completely sideways. And whoa, look at Yenish down there. Jeff Yenish, I should say, as there's 2 Yenishes in the race. That number 89 getting slideways out of turn number 4. So I'm looking forward to seeing those different strategies. I think we'll see them, and I think we'll see them here pretty soon.
So I'm with you when you said pit around lap 33. That's about when I was thinking that I would come down if I was the one behind the wheel. Split this race into thirds and have just enough left here. But I don't know. You may see some drivers try to stretch it, banking on that late race caution, having a set of tires on pit road late to try to clear it up later or get up there and get up front later in the race. And it looks like, Peter, that's what we're going to see, as I don't see any takers on pit road just yet, as you see this battle going on deep in the field. That's something I love about this car. You're seeing battles all over the racetrack. This battle you're watching right now is for 20th between Tyler Graff on the outside and Howard Strother Jr. on the inside. There are battles all over the racetrack. You don't see that anymore with this type of car, the current Cup cars, if you will. The car tomorrow was known for battles all around the racetrack. You don't see it as much anymore. It's awesome to see. And everywhere you look on this racetrack right now, there's someone locked in the battle.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I think we're going to go to our turn 2 cam this time as these cars kind of flash by, because you're going to see pretty much the entire field wagging the tail coming out of the corner as we do have a battle. We're actually going to focus on this battle here with the number 84 of Woody Mahan actually able to get around Jeff Yenish again. Those 2 trading spots once again. It was Mahan in front of Yenish about 5 laps ago. Now they swap back, and now looks like the 84 of Mahan's going to put the number 10 under fire down the front stretch. Looks like Woody Mahan, I mentioned a couple laps ago that he was on fire, one of the fastest cars out there on the racetrack, and just like that, he's going to sweep on by up into third. Oh, man, was that Daniel Knight getting up into the wall? It looked like he might have just touched it. And that number 17 now really starting to struggle. Meanwhile, up at the front, you're not missing anything except for Rasmus is running away with the show here, Greg. Up to a 5.3 second lead here on lap number 35. Not sure if he was just saving his tires, whether or not he just has a feel for this thing. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Mike Rasmus is a dirt tracker, as we got drivers coming down pit road, including the number 84 machine, who's going to lead him down. That's Woody Mahan.
Jordan Harnish right behind him, but I was watching someone, by the way, I was watching this. Look who's crept up into the top 10, Peter. Jason Stewart has made his way up into the top 10 under green as pit stops begin here. Woody Mahan and Jordan Harnish, the first 2 takers. Tyler Graff on pit road as well in the number 26, but he is sitting there on pit road, not getting service of any kind. He's getting some damage repaired on the number 26. No tires up. More drivers coming down, including Lanini in the number 92. He's on pit road. So the answer to the question, just a little bit past what we expected. We said lap 33. Lap 36 is when they started coming.
And how about that? The man who was your race leader, Mike Rasmus, also on pit road in the Miller Genuine Draft Machine. So I expect to see a lot of drivers now head down pit road. Now that the leaders come down, that's definitely going to open the cycle. Meanwhile, some drivers you would think will try and make it to the halfway mark. Daniel Knight here in the number 17, he might try and make it there. We've mentioned Jason Stewart and how he likes to get off strategy, but here comes the 17 doing a great job getting down to pit road speed very late. And that was someone behind him. Who was that? That was Joshua Biddle, I think, right behind him, who did a fantastic job. There is Biddle coming down at pit road speed, 50 miles an hour. Coming to his pit crew, did a spectacular job getting to the line there. And I got to say, one thing about this racetrack here, Greg, is we have a battle for the race lead out there on the racetrack between the number 89 and the 71. Creighton Carter's actually run down the number 89 machine just a little bit. Woody Mahan there coming out back out onto the racetrack with fresher tires. And now you can really see how much of an advantage those fresh tires have versus the man we ride on board with right now, Jeff Yenish, on those older tires. But one thing I wanted to mention, Greg, is the pit road entry here very difficult, and the pit road exit even more difficult because you just saw the number 17 there peeling back out onto the racetrack. It's got that long pit road exit, and you don't have to take it through turn number 3 and 4. You don't have to use that access road, if you will, here in iRacing. You can just kind of peel off the racetrack in turn number 4, but coming out of the pits, you have to use that access road, and it makes for a very, very slippery half of a lap.
That can make or break your race too if you're not careful on pit exit. If you run into some trouble and around they go, it's a long recovery for that race. By the way, Creighton Carter had gotten his nose in front of Jeff Yenish, hit the wall going into turn number 1, and just like that, he had the backtrack. They have yet to come down pit road. Neither has the Jason Stewart in the number 87. Waiting to see when they come down pit road. I was watching some of the drivers coming out off of pit road, and we have a caution. We'll have to talk about that here in a minute because we have our first yellow flag of the day.
Yeah, that is going to change everything. We'll see if we can figure out exactly what happened here to bring out this caution. I believe, whoa, the 4 and the 44 had it coming together, and that might have been on pit road exit. We'll see if we can get another look at that one and see what happened to bring out the caution flag. There's the number 4 machine of Daniel Gutierrez. He was one of those drivers who stayed out. I don't know if he just caught the wall and then got loose on entry, but he went down there below the apron and right up into the 44 of Michael Whiting, who had absolutely nowhere to go. Very tough break there for the number 44 machine. We'll see if we can get one more look. Let's see if we can figure out what happened to the number 4. Did he just catch the wall? Yes, he did. He just caught the wall. That unnerved the car on entry. He went down there onto the apron, tried to slow up, couldn't do so, and unfortunately for Whiting, slam bam into the wall, and that will bring out the first caution here at the 40% mark, and that is going to change pit strategies for the entire field.
The good news for Whiting and company, though, Peter, is they have a fast repair here in this race, so this is not the end of the day for either driver, and they will be able to continue, but now they got to make their way through traffic as you see the rest of the field who had just come down or had not yet come down pit road making their way on. As Michael Whiting pulls into his pit stall, he will use the fast repair. There's Jeff Yenish. He was leading the way when that caution came out, so he may have caught a break here as there's only 12, make it 13 cars on the lead lap with Lucky Dog after this is all said and done. So Jeff Yenish is going to be sitting pretty right now here up at the front of the field.
And I believe it is the number 80 of Joshua Biddle. I could be wrong, who picked up that Lucky Dog position down there a little bit further back in the field. So if it was the Joshua Biddle to pick that up, that will definitely be very beneficial. He'll be able to come back on the lead lap, come down, get some fresh tires if he elects to do so, because, of course, there is tire limits here tonight. Meanwhile, up at the front of the field, the number 48 machine, Howard Strother Jr., he actually has yet to come down pit road, I do believe, in that race car, so we'll see whether or not he elects to do so. But meanwhile, up at the front, we have a bunch of drivers, including drivers like Chris Lanini there, who will be taking the wave around, including Mark Cohn in the 39 machine, the number 31, who we haven't mentioned much here tonight, but that's Larry Orn in the Mike Skinner Lowe's throwback. I love that paint scheme from back in the day. But a lot of cars taking the wave around, and that's just because of when this caution fell. It fell at a very inopportune time for a lot of the field.
A couple drivers stayed out. Strother, Rasmus, Mahan, Harnish, and Knight. 5 drivers stayed out, so they will be ahead of these guys with the fresh tires. So this entire thing just got turned on its lid because now you've got all kinds of different drivers on different pit strategies at the very front of the field, not just the drivers behind the race leaders. Now they're all mixed in together. This is going to be a very, very interesting restart. And I'm looking at the number 48 of Strother Jr. A lot of damage on the left rear of the Cobalt Schools 48 cars. So he's the race leader, but he's got a lot of damage. And you mentioned how important downforce is to these cars. That might get a little hairy on this restart.
Yeah, and you can see up there the number of laps since these drivers were last on pit road. Now, some drivers here under this caution might have just elected to come down and take fuel. But that will be an interesting storyline going forward, Greg, on which drivers came in, took tires, which ones took fuel. And we'll have to reset the field for you here when we go green, because it is Howard Strother Jr. in the number 48 machine, who did not come down pit road at all. In fact, he hasn't pitted in the entire race. Perhaps he might be thinking, Greg, cautions breed cautions. Not 100% sure. I know we've seen that many times before. But one thing about these old Cup cars, Greg, wheel spin. And I'll tell you what, if I'm Strother right now, I am concerned out the wazoos for wheel spin on this restart. You have to watch it, especially on older tires. With the 900 horsepower that these cars have, very, very, very easy to get a little bit of wheel spin and lose control of the car on a restart.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern. And you know who I think is even more concerned about that right now? I think the driver of that purple and gray car in third, Woody Mahan. He is having some horror flashbacks right now and just hoping and praying that that does not happen in front of him when we take this green flag momentarily.
The pace car will dive, a late dive down pit road, and we will be waiting for that green flag to drop. There it is. We're back racing here at Homestead-Miami. Only one caution in the first half of the race. Hopefully it can stay caution-free for the next half of the race. Meanwhile, the 48 of Strother, he is already dropping back through the field on those older tires. Couldn't quite get it up to speed, and he is already almost dropped outside of the top 10. Back up at the front, the number 68, Mike Razimus. He was your leader just a little while ago before he made his first pit stop of the night. He's got himself back up to the point with Jordan Harnish, the number 10, the pole sitter, earlier from the night here in the DMLC Racing Channel presents the More Power 150. He's got himself back up to second.
No, he's got a lot of speed on the short run in his number 10 because, Peter, he was able to break out to a pretty big lead in the opening stages of the race before Rasmus was able to reel him in on the long run. And Harnish is putting pressure on Rasmus right now. So I'm expecting to see more of the same here out of the number 10. If he can get around Rasmus, we may see him start to pull away once again. And he's taking a peek to the bottom as you see battling going on throughout the field. You're watching Mark Cohn up there with the number 16 of Michael Larch to his outside. But there's the leaders. Rasmus continues to lead, but Harnish is putting pressure on. The pole sitter and early race leader, he is looking for it right now.
Yeah, Harnish has led 20 laps here tonight. I know Rasmus only led 17 there before he came down pit road, but that number 10 all over the back bumper of that number 68 as they shoot down the back stretch. I absolutely love this racetrack because of the fact that you can race so many different lines through the corners and get those runs up off. I mean, look at, we saw that 3 wide a little while ago, cars running up there near the wall, cars running in the middle, cars running right down there on the white line. That is one of the things that this racetrack really promotes due to the fact that it has that progressive banking, if you will. There's the number 71 of Creighton Carter. He's run inside the top 10 for most of the night, but right behind him, the number 87 of Jason Stewart on fresh tires. We know that fact. And we were seeing Stewart there climbing through the field before that caution flag came out. He was one of those drivers on that long strategy to try and make it towards halfway before coming down pit road. And I got to say, Jason Stewart here on those fresh tires, we mentioned he does stuff that other drivers don't do. You can't count him out. And he's working his way here, battling for the 7th position up towards the front.
Like, you imagine if that Joe Nemechek-inspired number 87 Toyota was able to put it in victory lane here on 3Y TV, an unsponsored car here in the number 87 winning this race. If he can pull this off, how cool would that be? We don't see that ever. You don't see just a blank car in victory lane. You've got 2 very fast ones in this field right now. Talking, of course, about Stewart and the driver making another move for the lead. Jordan Harnish, an unsponsored car for him as well in his Loud Pedal Motorsports entry. So Dirty Bird Sim Racing and Loud Pedal Motorsports running kind of an underfunded team right now, if you will, but no doubt they have some speed. I'm looking forward to seeing if one of them can park in the victory lane by the end of the night.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely quite a bit of speed out of them. Meanwhile, let's go a little bit further back in the field. This battle back here, there is the number 10 machine of Nick Curling. And Greg, he was one of those drivers. We saw him up there in the top 5 early in the show, but he was starting to really struggle with that race car and started sliding back. And now he's being scored in the 16th position, just outside the top 15 right there with the number 16 right in front of him. And he's trying to work his way back up to the front, but I'm wondering if Curling might have just burned up his stuff a little bit too much there under that first run, as we now are in the last half of the race. 50 laps down, 50 laps to go here in this one.
It's a very distinct possibility that that is what happened with the number 10K of Curling, because just how quickly he was falling through the field after having a lot of speed in the first half of the race. As you watch Stewart now on the inside of Krobach, that's a battle we've seen before here on 3Y TV, so good to see that in this style of car. Stewart trying to make a move down to the inside of the number 72 of Krobach, trying to bring Creighton Carter with him. And Peter, I'm thinking about this. You know what almost we can do, say in like 6-7 months, and look through the 3Y TV archives, with the way these cars were replaced by the current cars, you could almost try to fool someone and say, hey, this race was before the days of what we see on 3Y TV with the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. We could see how many guys we can fib and who aren't watching tonight and see, hey, check out this race from a while ago and see these drivers before they were in the PC series, because you can almost pull it off just with the fact that they're in these cars as opposed to the current Cup cars.
I'll tell you what, that was a mega wiggle out of the number 92 machine. We're going to have to see this one more time here on the 3-wide TV replay. Sideways, saves it, sideways, saves it, sideways, and still trying to save it. That was the number 92 there of Lanini. We've seen him up there near the front of the field in the first half of the race, now under fire from the number 80 machine of Joshua Biddle. He will slide outside of the top 10 as Biddle says, hello, top 10. And he's trying to work his way forward. He's one of those drivers who I believe recently came down pit road as well. But meanwhile, back at the front, Rasmus continuing to run away with it. Harnish still holding on to second. You see him right there. But I'll tell you what, that battle for second is now very, very hot as Jeff Yenish is knocking on the door once again. That number 89, we saw him pretty fast there at the end of that last run. And it looks like Yenish is going to take that spot away. Move Yenish now up into the second spot. Has TampaSUVRentals.com on the side. Of course, we are in the great state of Florida. So I got to say, that's a pretty fitting sponsor on that very good looking number 89 machine. I really like that slight silver sheen on it there, Greg. A good looking car is back behind them. Meanwhile, looks like the number 17 of Daniel Knight's going to slide on by Jordan Harnish to move him back up into the top three.
Yeah, now we're starting to see the same thing out of Harnish that we saw at the end of that first run with the struggles on the longer run. As you see now, Stewart going after Mahan, Dirty Bird, and Loud Pedal going to battle right now. This is for 5th on the racetrack. Stewart trying to crack the top 5 for the second time tonight. Remember, he had to start at the back. He took an EOL penalty, a provisional, if you will, to start at the tail end of the field. Did not qualify, has worked his way back into the top 5. Not just off pit strategy either. He has done this under green, not once but twice now in that number 87 car. I will not at all be surprised if Jason Stewart is a player in how this race turns out.
Yeah, I got to say, these cars are whipping their way around this racetrack. They are no slouches here, and I absolutely love that. Do you remember that, Greg? When you used to whip these things around the racetrack, you felt like you were absolutely on edge every single time you went off into the corner, because they're just so slippery, especially on a racetrack like this one, where the speeds are very, very high, and you're in southern Florida. The sun just beating down on the racetrack, making the racetrack hotter and hotter and slicker and slicker and slicker, and that's what these drivers are going to have to face. Let's see if we can bring up the current weather conditions. The track temperature actually has fallen off a little bit, down to 103 degrees Fahrenheit, so I'm sure these drivers will be happy to see that here in this one.
Yeah, the drivers are going to be no doubt thrilled that the temperature is beginning to cool off, down 6 degrees from the start of this race. And going back again, we talked about just how excited we were to bring you this race with this type of car. Something you don't see very often as Stewart grabs another spot. This one from Harnish into number 10, moves Stewart up to 4th now. And hey, maybe we can convince the powers that be to be able to do this again. We talked about the race in Atlanta before this that we didn't get to broadcast. Now we're here in Homestead getting to broadcast it. Hey, maybe this is something we can do over the winter if we can make it work and get some more of these Car Tomorrow races at some of these tracks and go back in time. We get to go back in time with the Thursday Night Throwback Series, now the Classic Cup Series with the ASRS, but we don't get to do this very often at all. So I kind of like this going back in time, stepping back to kind of the forgotten time of NASCAR. 2007 to 2012 is when these cars ran, and love seeing it. It's a throwback to when we were growing up. It's fun to see it all unfold here, and hopefully we get to do this more often.
I gotta say, we're right on board here with Jason Stewart, who is continuing to pull away from Jordan Harnish back behind him. But one thing I wanted to mention here, Greg, is the fact, look how slow they are in the corners. They're down to 135 miles an hour at the center of turn number 3 and 4 there. You can watch that speed down there in the bottom. Look at their speed on the straightaway. Almost 190 miles an hour, 183 there, just briefly flashed on the screen here on board with Jason Stewart. That's all that horsepower, man. They just rocket down the straightaways, and then they don't have a lot of downforce in the corner, and they really have to back out of it, and they're backing out of it really early as a 17 there flirts with the outside retaining wall. Stewart, on those fresher tires, remember, Greg, he was on that long run strategy to try and get himself up to the lead, and here looking for third position.
Peter, we saw the 17 of Knight get up close to the wall a bit ago. You have way more seat time in this style of car than I do. Again, I talked about I've only got one career start in this car. That came at Dover, and I was trying to keep it away from the wall as much as possible. As you see Knight get up close to the wall, we've seen other drivers do it as well. Talk for a minute about exactly what those cars are doing when they get up close to the wall like that, because you don't see that type of reaction with the current Cup cars. You don't see the cars just shoot off the wall like that without even touching it. What's going on with these cars when they get up close to the wall?
Well, these cars, when they get up to the wall, especially if you hit a bump the wrong way, you kind of get them to wallow, and that's what the number 17 is struggling right there. What we saw him a lap or two ago was he was wallowing. That car just kind of bouncing. It's just unhappy. You can't get it settled in the racetrack. And so if you get that thing kind of moving back and forth and you clip that wall, it can be day done for you. I mean, we saw that issues there with Gutierrez in the number 4 machine as well as the 44 of Whiting. They had a little bit of a coming together. The Ford just barely tagged the wall. The car got out of shape and into the wall. These cars are on a knife edge, especially with this setup. We mentioned earlier, this is not a good setup by any means. And these drivers here, they're going to struggle if they just slightly hit that wall. If they get close to it, they're going to be afraid to hit it. You mentioned, Greg, you're just trying to avoid them. You got to keep that car off the wall, not only for downforce purposes, but other purposes, because you can end up spinning.
Just trying to keep it as close to the wall as you can without touching the wall, but you got to find that sweet spot. You're going to see what happened with Daniel Knight happen to you as well. You just saw that bright yellow car streak by there, number 44 Michael Whiting. How about this? He used the fast repair and has already climbed his way back into the top 10 in the number 44. Nice recovery for Whiting. Going after your pole sitter right now, Jordan Harnish, but we have a 3YTV replay because things got a little bit hairy a moment ago.
Yeah, look at this big slide out of the number 10 machine of Curling. They're coming out of turn number 4. Great job to keep that car underneath them. We will see that a lot here tonight. We're back live focusing on the number 10 to see if it's going to happen again, the 10 of Harnish. They're sliding up the racetrack just a little bit there coming out of turn number 4. Good job, though, to keep it nice and straight. But like you mentioned there, the 44 of Whiting having a good recovery after being involved in that accident. Of course, you did mention the one and only fast repair that these drivers do get here tonight. You see right down there, 3 tire sets, 1 attempt at a green-white checker if we get there. And more importantly, the 900 horses. It looks like the 44 of Whiting now going to move his way back up into 8th. Great recovery continues. And now Joshua Biddle in that number 80 machine right back behind him, trying to get around the number 10 of Harnish, who's continuing to slide back here under this run.
We got a battle beginning to brew for the lead as well, Peter. Jeff Yanish has caught up to Mike Rasmus in the number 68. This goes back to what we talked about earlier. There are battles all over this racetrack right now. It's hard to pick which one to focus on because every time you look away, another one breaks out, and it's just as exciting as the other ones. You're on board with Rasmus looking back at Yanish right now. Number 68 and 89 battling it out here off of turn number 4 at Homestead, but Yanish trying to reel in Rasmus. He had gotten to his door a couple of times, but has fallen back now 0.3 of a second. He's been much stronger on entry, this point right here. And again, takes that lower line as you see a battle going on. This is for 4th between Knight and Carter. Behind them, Mahan, Krobach, and Whiting all trying to close in as well. So again, battles everywhere on the racetrack right now.
Yeah, and I really love how these battles, they really pop up as the run goes on. They kind of settles down, things get into a rhythm, and then all of a sudden you start getting battles all over the racetrack as people's tires start to wear out. But meanwhile, up at the front, Yenish is as close as he's been to Rasmus as they head off into turn number 1, still kind of looking a little bit lower on the racetrack. And Greg, that's probably that 89 looking for a little bit of clean air on the nose to get some downforce to get that car planted. But he's sliding coming out of turn number 2, and he has to back out of it and slide back behind the number 68 of Rasmus. This is a fantastic battle. 32 laps to go here in tonight's More Power 150 presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. Make sure you check out the DMLC Racing Channel here on YouTube. And if you're liking what you're seeing here tonight on 3Y TV, make sure you hit the like button on the video and remember to subscribe as well, because we are 2 viewers away, at least we were at the top of the show, 2 viewers away from getting to 700 subscribers here on the channel. This battle continues to rage on. The 89, Greg, he's using that lower line. We mentioned the progressive banking a little while ago, trying to find some grip down there. You see him maybe trying to get a little bit of clean air on the nose to find a little bit extra grip, but he can get to the quarter panel of the number 68. Just can't quite find the ability to get the throttle down where he needs to find a little bit of rear end grip.
And that comes with the tires wearing out. And by the way, Peter, we're on lap 71, so we are now in that pit window opening up again here for the final run. We are 30 laps to go now, so I'm going to ask you again, when do you pit this time? Knowing what happened, we got a caution right around halfway. We've got 30 laps to go. Everyone has one set of tires on pit road as Yenish takes another peek to the bottom of Rasmus, and they will drag race down the front stretch once again. Jason Stewart creeping up as well. He shaved another second off in at number 87. But when, Peter, do you pit to get ready for this run to the finish?
Oh, man, that's a good question. As the 89 here, Yenish has as good of a run as he's had yet, but that 69 using that higher line, a little bit more banking up there, keeping that momentum up, able to hold on to the lead for now. But that's a good question, Greg. I don't know if you pit again if this race goes green to the end. I would have expected to see drivers like Rasmus on pit road with about 33 to go. That kind of breaks the race into thirds, but he's elected to stay out here with 28 laps to go, and your ability to catch up, to make up for the fresh tires is whittling away lap after lap. I don't think he's going to come down pit road in that number 68 machine. I think they were able to get into the window under that last caution flag, and if we don't see any more cautions, they're done. They're going to be done pitting. Of course, commentator could always be wrong. It's a very common occurrence here at 3Y TV. But if a caution flag comes out, the whole field's coming down. No doubt about it. So I think the big question is going to be, will we see a caution in these final 27 laps as Jason Stewart in the number 87 Joe Nemechek throwback? He's coming out of nowhere as Yenish in the 89 gets a strong run through the center of turn number 1 and 2, and he's going to get himself up to the front. Greg, I think he was watching that number 87 getting closer and closer and closer in his rearview mirror.
Decided it was go time, and he gets the lead. He's going to come by and officially lead the lap again, but Jason Stewart is lurking in the number 87. We do have cars on pit road now, including Rasmus in the number 68, Peter, because this was going to be my next question. If they could go the end of the race on tires, yes. What about fuel? Could they go the rest of the way on fuel on a 55 or so lap green flag run?
Ah, man, I think they could. It would be very tight. They're running at 84. Oh, man, that's the 87. Stewart making some heavy contact with the wall there down the backstretch. We'll go back and catch this one on the instant replay here. But this is your second place car of Jason Stewart. A couple of cars back behind him on fresh tires. I think that was the number 10 machine. It was trying to get by him, and looks like the 87 just pancaked the outside wall. Big question is now going to be Jason Stewart. Will he come down pit road here, use that fast repair? I kind of expect him to do that here, Greg, because with all that damage that he might have on that race car, it might not affect him a whole lot, but I think that personally would change my game plan, and I think I'd come down pit road. But he's staying out there on the racetrack. We have 12 cars on the lead lap as of right now, and look at the number 17 right there. on the fresh tires. That is Daniel Knight, a man who was very, very quick in the practice session a little while ago. You can see just how important the fresh tires are and how much faster you are. But the big question is now going to be the 17 Daniel Knight just got himself unlapped here, Greg. And I'm looking at lap times between Daniel Knight and your front drivers, and it looks like at the pace the 17 has right now, he would be able to catch them. So perhaps my pit strategy is completely wrong, but it's going to be fun to see exactly how it all pans out.
I'm curious if anyone up front is going to try and do it right now. These two, Yanish and Stewart, have broken away. It's 5 seconds back to third place Creighton Carter in the number 71, who's still battling with Krobach and Mahan and company right now. So I think you might see someone try it, knowing that, hey, they're going to have to still race their way up to the front, and a lot can happen. You can go into conservative mode if you're Yanish and Stewart. Just kind of settle things down between yourselves for a little bit and think, hey, you know, we're on a common goal right now. We're trying to make it to the end. I wonder if we are going to see them try to go to the end, ride it out, save some stuff, and then maybe 10 to go or so, which is 12 laps away at this point. Maybe that's when you start seeing them slice and dice again. So I think you might see Yanish and Stewart, if they intend to try to go the distance, I think you might see him go into conservative mode for the next 10 or so laps, if that is what they're planning on doing. They can always come to pit road at any time.
We just saw a pass for what is currently the 5th position out there on the racetrack as they run, with Michael Lark able to get around Nick Curling. That was the battle for that 5th position, like I mentioned. Meanwhile, Michael Krobach and Creighton Carter, the 71 and the 72, as the 72 gets way out of shape coming out of turn 4. The 71 and the 72 have pretty much been inseparable this entire race, Greg. It seems like every single time I look up, the 71 and the 72 running together right now. Right now, about 0.6 of a second separating those two cars out there on the racetrack. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, the number 4 and the number 39 running pretty close together out there on the racetrack right now. There's Mark Cohn working his way now into the corner. Car in front of him. This is the number 4 of Gutierrez. That is a battle for position right now. That'd be a battle for the 7th spot. Meanwhile, back behind him, Jordan Harnish in the number 10 machine. There he is. We're going to bring up a graphic up at the top of the screen so you can kind of see how many laps it's been since these drivers were last on pit road. So you kind of see which of these drivers have fresh tires, and that driver right there, that's the reason I brought up that graphic. Jordan Harnish, it's been about 10 laps since he was on pit road, and he's been making good use of those fresh tires. He's back on the lead lap for right now, 24 and a half seconds or so behind the race leader, and he's closing in on Mark Cohn. That'd be a battle for 8th. But going to be interesting to see exactly how this all works out for the number 10 machine, because he is on a charge here right now, just blows on by Mark Cohn for that position. And Harnish, over the last few laps, he's been lapping, Greg, about 2 seconds faster than the race leader, which is unbelievable. That number 10 machine just absolutely so much quicker on those fresh tires.
And at the rate we're going right now, that would be enough to catch up to him. Meanwhile, the battle for the lead is beginning to heat up again as Stewart getting another run at Yanish in the number 89 there off of turn number 4. Stewart trying to bring the Joe Nemechek car up to the front. We got 2 Toyotas battling it out here late in the going. We've got 18 laps to go here in the More Power 150, and what a show this has been. And I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. Somebody out there, please give us a league with these cars that we can see on a weekly basis, because this has been so much fun watching these guys wheel these old cars.
Yeah, it absolutely has. I've been looking forward to this race.
Did you see Stewart right there in the number 87? Did you see that save that he just had to pull in that number 87 car? Let's see if we can get a 3-wide TV replay. Sorry to cut you off, Peter, but watch this. Watch Stewart come through turn 3. He pushes up the track a little bit, cuts it down to the bottom, and right there just snaps loose. What a save.
Yeah, great job there by that number 87 machine to get himself pointed back going straight, and he didn't lose a whole lot of time. He's still just about 0.3 of a second there behind Jeff Yanish in that number 89 machine. But Yanish there starting to struggle with the rear end of that number 89 Tampa SUVRentals.com Toyota as well. As I'm still continuing to watch times. Jordan Harnish, he's now within 20 seconds of the race lead, and he's lapping about 1.5 seconds faster. You do the math, folks, and he would be up there with the leaders if he can hold on to that pace before the end of the race. But does he have enough time? Here comes the 87 of Stewart again, just weaving and just bobbing their way down the backstretch, Greg. They just look so unstable with these old Cup cars. It's so much fun to drive and so much fun to watch here on 3 Wide TV as again your leaders both getting out of shape. This is going to be a fun battle for the race win if it's between these two, because these drivers will be on 50 plus lap old tires when they get to the checkered flag.
I'm hoping they have enough fuel in the tank to go the way. I'm hoping they can make it to the finish because this is incredible. Here comes Stewie to the inside into number 87, but he bobbles down the backstretch, and that allows Janisch to get his nose back in front. And Stewart's going to have to fight through 3 and 4, door to door. Stewie gets the nose in front. Watch Janisch here in the outside. Stewart's going to lead the lap in the 87, but he's not clear yet.
And going off into turn number 1, looks like Stewart's going to drive it in hard and take the race lead. How about that? Jason Stewart, who started this race back in the 24th position, Greg, he's got himself up to the lead for the first time here tonight. It's only taken him 86 laps to do so, but now he's just 14 laps away from possibly walking away with the More Power 150 presented by the DMLC Racing Channel win, as well as a brand new fancy watch brought to you by Mark Cohn.
Peter, are you a believer at superstition and all?
I might be a little stitious.
I'm going to propose a question, see if you were paying attention. What car number is Jason Stewart? What lap did he just take the lead on?
Ooh, that is a good one. 87 and 87. You know, that was personally one of my favorite things, believe it or not, is when I was car number X and I led on lap number X. I always felt like that was a little bit of good superstition. So in that regards, yes, I am superstitious. That number 87 continuing to lead the race. Jeff Janisch starting to fall back a little bit, but we're going to go back even further in the field. We're going to go back to this man right here, Jordan Harnish. He's 15 seconds behind the race lead and being battled with the number 17 there, but in front of them, more importantly, Mike Rasmus in the number 68 machine. He's actually gotten by, and Rasmus now the first car on fresh tires. Now, here's the thing about Rasmus in this race. Rasmus currently is running 34.447 second lap times. That was his last time. Well, here's the thing about your leaders. They're running 36 second laps. This number 68 machine is 2 seconds faster per lap right now than your race leaders. He's going to catch him here in about 6 laps. There'll be 5 laps to go, and Stewart and Janisch will be sitting ducks if we don't see another caution, and if the 68 can continue his torrid pace up towards the front of the field. So that's going to be a fun one to watch. Meanwhile, Jeff Janisch really starting to fall back here, Greg. He's now 3 seconds behind Jason Stewart. Perhaps he is in fuel conserve mode. Not 100% sure. We'll see if we can go on board with him in that race car. I think he is in fuel conserve mode. He's dropping a ton of time on the car that's 2 cars in front of him. That would be, of course, your current race leader, the number 87 of Jason Stewart. But Janisch having a great show here tonight as the number 67 gets on by him. Well, let's see if we can go on board here with the man who's trying to slice his way up through the field. This is Mike Rasmussen trying to track down the number 16, Michael Lark there, and just going to blast by him, I think. There you see it. And the 24 there, Corey Silva, who's been in a hole the entire race, having issues. Oh, man, big wiggle there out of the 68, trying to get past the number 48 machine now. That, of course, is driven by Howard Strother Jr., and that number 68 is on a charge here. Next car for position is right in front of him. That's the number 71 machine of Creighton Carter.
And this is slowing him down, trying to slice through all this lap traffic, Peter. This is allowing Stewart to try to open up a little bit more of a gap, which right now, every inch of racetrack matters if you're Jason Stewart, because you want to have as big a buffer as you can. By the way, he's opened it up almost 5 seconds now over Jeff Janisch in the number 89, so he has no pressure out the back for now. But if Rasmus, who by the way is just taking over third spot with that pass, can get up there, we're in for a treat here to see if Rasmus can get around Stewart and Janisch. It's 8 seconds back to him, but man, I don't know.
Yeah, it's, we always said it's one thing to catch him, it's another thing to pass him, but it's also another thing to pass him if you have 40-lap fresher tires. And in the case of Mike Rasmus, he does have 40-lap fresher tires. And with these cars, that's going to make a big difference. We're watching Michael Krobach and Creighton Carter running 4th and 5th right now. Big wiggle there out of Creighton Carter. We mentioned how these two drivers have been locked together pretty much the entire race. Meanwhile, we go on board with them right here. Mike Rasmus continuing to close in on Jeff Janisch. And look at Janisch. Is Janisch out of fuel? Oh, no, he's got a lot of damage on the front of that race car. And looks like he's going to be passed by Mike Rasmus. So Rasmus now moving up into second in that number 68 machine. He now only has one more position, and that's Jason Stewart. But we now only have 6 more laps to go here at Homestead-Miami in the More Power 150, presented by the DMLC Racing Channel.
6 laps to go, and Rasmus is still about 1 second faster than Stewart. He's 5 seconds back. You do the math. He's going to catch him with about 1 lap to go at this current pace. I'm watching the 68, and I'm watching from this camera right here to see just how quickly he can reel in that blue number 87 as they come off the straightaway. Just look for the blue car, because that is who Rasmus is trying to reel in right now.
What's crazy is we have 5 laps to go, Greg, and you can't tell which one's the blue car, but it's the car that's 2 ahead of the man we ride on board with here, down to only 3 seconds with 5 laps to go. Rasmus just is chomping at the bit right now. He is rubbing his hands. He's saying, I want to get that race lead, and it is just a couple laps away. If we stay caution-free to the end, I think this is Rasmus' race to win, because you can visibly see how much faster he is. Down to 2 seconds now as we cross the stripe. 4 more laps to go at Homestead-Miami.
Here as they go off into turn 1, let's see if we can look out the back bumper of Jason Stewart, because I'm looking at that right now. You can see the Miller Genuine Draft Pontiac beginning to feel the windshield and fill the mirror. Here comes Mike Rasmus. But we talk about it, this is something else. Catching them is one thing, passing is still another, because you know Jason Stewart is going to go into full defense mode as soon as Rasmus gets up there, because he's only got 3 more laps to try to hold him off. Rasmus is coming, but man, oh man, Stewart is going to go on absolute prevent defense to try to keep him back there for as long as he can. But here we go. You can see the Miller Genuine Draft logo on the hood of the Pontiac. Rasmus, knock, knock. Here I am.
It'll be 2 laps to go. 3 miles this time at Homestead-Miami. A big wiggle out of the back of Mike Rasmus there as he makes contact with the wall, but he's got to the right rear quarter panel of that number 87, trying to power his way around the high side. He's got the preferred line to make a move, and that 68 machine, he has led 44 laps. Make that 45. 2 laps to go at Homestead-Miami.
Now all he's got to do is keep it clean for 2 more laps. But if you're Jason Stewart, you cannot give up. You have to be right there in case something happens. We've seen several cars hit the wall already here tonight. You have to be right there, ready to capitalize if something happens to Mike Rasmus, because you still have 2 miles to go in this race. They're coming to the white flag this time by. Stewart cannot afford to just get complacent with a second place. He's got to be right there, ready to pounce if Rasmus has an issue, but he's only got 1 more lap as the white flag falls.
White flag waves. There's a battle a little bit further back inside the top 10 between Harnish and Krobach. Harnish just took away the 7th position as the white flag is now out. Meanwhile, Woody Mahan trying to close down on Michael Lark. That is a battle for the 4th position. There is that number 16 machine, the number 84 right behind him, running a little bit faster out there on the racetrack. Can he make a move? We'll have to wait and see at the stripe. Meanwhile, we'll go back up to the front. The 68 machine, Mike Rasmus, working his way through turn number 3 and 4 for the final time here tonight.
Off of turn number 4, it works out for him. Mike Rasmus rallies from 12 second back with 10 laps to go. He wins the More Power 150 at Homestead-Miami. What a performance out of Jason Stewart in the number 87, though, to come home second. And how about it for Daniel Knight, able to rally up and finish third as he is able to hold off Lark and Mahan. great job by these drivers. An unbelievable race here tonight at Homestead-Miami. And the More Power 150, the win goes to Mike Rasmus.
Yeah, what an absolute fantastic race here tonight. I enjoyed it. And look, Rasmus enjoyed it as well. He's sliding his way through turn number 3 and 4. And I expect him to do some very impressive donuts with all 900 horsepower of that Pontiac Grand Prix engine as he comes to a halt here on the front stretch. And folks, Jeff Yenish in the number 89 machine didn't work out the way he wanted to. He fell all the way down to the 11th position in the final tally there on the left-hand side of the screen. Definitely not exactly what that number 89 machine was hoping there in the final laps, but a valiant effort by him. Also, valiant effort by Jason Stewart. I said you can't count him out. Greg started well back in the field and works his way up to the front. Well, we're going to step away for just a brief moment here on 3 Wide TV, and we'll be right back with some post-race interviews with some of the drivers. We'll be right back. All right, folks, welcome back here on 3 Wide TV. We have caught up with tonight's second place finisher in the More Power 150 presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. Of course, the number 87 of Jason Stewart. We said you couldn't count him out, but Greg Rentz has caught up with him.
And Jason Stewart, you led 12 laps here tonight. What a performance. And we talked about you a little bit throughout the course of the race. We said if anyone's going to go off sequence, it's going to be the guy in that number 87 car. And you did it once again here. Man, what a drive for you here tonight. First off, what made you make the one pit stop strategy call?
We'll see if we can dial him up one more time. Jason Stewart, Peter Short, 3 Wide TV booth. You got a copy? Well, I guess not.
Well,
y'all there?
There you are.
There he is.
Go ahead, Greg.
All right.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good, Jason. Figured you were probably just off getting some water or something after one heck of a race. But I'll ask you again, man, we talked about it early in the race. We said if anyone's going to go off sequence and try something, it's going to be Jason Stewart in the number 87 car. And you did just that. What possessed you to try to make the one-stop strategy there?
That first run, the car still felt good after 40-something laps. So we're just like, we'll try. So we ran out of fuel coming across the finish line.
You had just enough to make it there to the end. And another question, we noticed you did not qualify for this race tonight. You did not post a qualifying lap. You started tail end of the field in 24th. Did that also play into your strategy, or was that kind of just spur of the moment thing?
I had to do some stuff with the kids and disqualifying, but kind of wish I would have qualified now.
Yeah, definitely. But it made one heck of a performance for you here in the number 87, the Joe Nemechek inspired number 87, slicing and dicing through the field. And talk a little bit about that, because that was so much fun watching you rip through this field, not once, but twice under green flag conditions. Tell us about driving these cars. What makes these cars so different than the regular Cup cars, and just the overall vibe of the race?
I've actually never even drove this car till tonight, and it pushes going in and it's loose off, and sometimes you can do full throttle down the straightaway, and sometimes you're half throttle, so it doesn't stick to the track like the new car.
Well, Jason, as of now, this was a one-off here on 3Y TV, but hopefully we get a chance to see you in this car more often. Hopefully you get a chance to drive this car more often. But you know what's coming on 3Y TV, because this doesn't change regardless of car. You get a chance to thank your sponsors.
Oh, like thank Checker Flag PCs and Mark for putting this on, and Kirkwood Transportation, and Mod Chaser Mitch. Who else we got? TNT Firearms, and Patriot Marketing and Media. I'd like to thank all of them. That was a fun race. I hope we can do this again. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, I'll be right there advocating with you here for this one. Second place for the Stew here tonight. Jason Stewart gets it done for Dirty Bird Sim Racing. A second place. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks for the broadcast, guys. Can't wait to watch it tomorrow.
Absolutely, Jason. And now I believe Peter Short has made his way down the 3Y TV victory lane, where he has caught up with the driver who led the most laps and put on a rally for the ages. Peter Short's with Mike Rasmus.
Yeah, I am with the man who gets the checkered flag here tonight in that Pontiac Grand Prix. Very much like Rusty Wallace used to do a lot back in the day. Mike, stellar race here tonight, not only by you, but the rest of the field. Only one caution. First off, was that what you were expecting here tonight? It's not what I was expecting here tonight. Great to see some long green flag runs, and you really excelled on those long runs. Tell us about your night.
Yeah, I'm so pumped. I wasn't sure how it was going to work out at the end with Jason on the other strategy, and I I was saving because I thought Daniel Knight was going to be on the same strategy as me, and I thought maybe we'd cycle out to the lead and I'd be racing him for the win. And then I realized like 20 laps to go that I was actually racing Jason and them, who were still way ahead of me. So I had to start pushing. And yeah, I thought there would be more cautions. I thought there'd be a little bit more, cautions where people wouldn't take tires and all that. But it ended up being long runs, which is super fun, super classic, and just a great event all around. I think a lot of great racing, at least where I was on track. And yeah, really proud of this.
Of course, one of the key things about tonight's race was the fact that this was supposed to be hard. The setup was not a good setup. It was a bad setup. It was purposefully a bad setup. It was one that you were going to have to drive every single turn, all 100 laps here tonight. And it was great to see it all hang out. We saw cars completely sideways. Tell us how you managed that here tonight. I'm sure you're going to say that it was basically like making the throttle as if you had an egg underneath it. But tell the people watching at home what it's like just working your way around the racetrack with this car.
Yeah, even if you're not pushing the throttle, you're still wearing the rear tires. So I kind of figured out halfway through that I needed to push the fronts more. So I was turning into like Jeff Yenish had a great line, and he was so much faster than me going into the corners. So I figured out I needed to kind of use the brake a little bit better and make the car kind of carry more speed into corners, so that makes up for the loss of grip on the exit of the corners. And that's basically how I drove the whole time, just trying to be really conservative, trying not to slide anything. And yeah, basically don't steer, don't press the gas, and don't touch the brake. Basically don't do anything, and you'll be okay at the end of the run.
Yeah, basically conserve those 4 Goodyear tires underneath you as much as you can, and you did a stellar job of it here tonight. One thing I was really impressed with was how much fall off there was, not only in the tires, but every single time you got into the corner, you're going 180 miles an hour down the straightaway. You back off, and you're down to 130 at the apex of turn number 1 and 2, and 135 or so at the apex of turn number 3 and 4. How important was it to back up your corners here tonight? I mean, that's one of the things that with the modern Cup car, that they run, you don't get to back up your corners very often. But with these older Cup cars, man, you had to back up your corners quite a bit and fiddle around with that brake bias. And as you mentioned, you don't want to do anything. You want to let that car sit as much as it can.
Yeah, you had to really decide when to push and when to save, and backing up the corners helps a lot. I think if you ask Jeff Yen or something, he has a little bit of a secret of how to get into those corners a lot faster. But yeah, I don't know. Just it's real concentration. You just got to keep focused and run your line and try not to let other people around you dictate what you're gonna do. I mean, I burned the tires off a lot in the second stint racing against Jordan because he was fast too, and I was kind of worried that they were gonna just kind of surpass me going into the end of the race.
Well, absolutely, Mike. A stellar run by you, and I think it's your first time up here in the 3 Wide TV booth and in Victory Lane. So you're 1-for-1 on 3 Wide TV. Got to say that's an awesome statistic, and hopefully you can carry that winning statistic on forward. But Mike, before we let you go, any shout outs?
Yeah, I want to thank Mark Cohn for putting this on. It was his idea, Corey Silva, and just a great bunch of people put this together really fast. And I was excited from the beginning and happy to have come away with a win. And it's nice to meet you guys too. Thanks for putting on this broadcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a great run here tonight, Mike. We hope to see you again here on 3 Wide TV. Maybe you can continue your winning ways. But until we meet again, best of luck and talk to you soon.
Cheers.
All right. Well, folks, I think we have actually caught up with the third place finisher, Daniel Knight. He's finally made his way into the Discord. So I believe Greg Rentz is going to take it away with Daniel Knight.
And Daniel Knight, a third place here tonight and having to rip through the field late in the going. So, Daniel, first off, tell us about your charge through the field late and getting back up there to third place.
Oh man, I'm surprised it worked out that well, to be honest. The first half of the race, I just kept thinking, don't crash, don't crash, don't crash, don't crash. And then the later half, I felt like I had enough of a handle on what the car was doing to try to play some strategy. So I was sitting there talking to my teammate Adam Young and doing mental math and trying to figure out when everybody else was going to pit. So I tried to cut it short by about 5 laps, and it almost paid off. But Mike was really fast tonight, so congrats to him on the win.
And Daniel, talk a little bit. Mike mentioned it too. He mentioned that he thought it was going to be down between you guys for the win, and then he said he realized it was about 15-20 to go that he had to get up there and get around Jason Stewart. So what goes through your mind when you believe you're locked in a battle with the guy right next to you for the win, and then all of a sudden you realize that up about 15 seconds, which at Homestead-Miami is more than an entire straightaway, by the way, you realize that with just 15 laps to go, there's a guy over a full straightaway ahead of you that you now have to try to catch, and you go in the full go get it done mode. Tell us about trying to reel in Jason Stewart there at the end.
Yeah, I kind of realized after that stop, kind of cycled out, and I was sitting around 10th, I think, and realized that those guys all in front were going to really try to push it or on fuel and make it. So my plan had been to save tires as much as I could so that when Mike caught me, I had a little bit to battle him with. But yeah, as soon as I realized that they were going to try to push it to the end, I started pushing and burned up a little bit more than I wanted, for sure.
Lance, so Daniel, you told us how much fun this car was to drive, and what brought you to this race? What about this race reached out to you and said, hey, this is something I want to do to go out and take a shot at it? So what brought you to the More Power 150 tonight?
Well, that's Adam Young all the way. He's a staple in the Lionheart series. He races with these guys all the time, and I raced with him in some other leagues, and he posted in the group chat the info about the race a few days ago, and I said, that sounds like a blast. So thanks to him for reaching out, and thanks to Mark and Corey for putting it on. Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but I think races like this are a lot of fun.
Hey, Daniel, we just got word from the DMLC Racing Channel. You are the random drawing winner. Again, everybody who had a 0x throughout the course of the race got entered into a random drawing. You are getting a watch because you had 0x. You won the random drawing courtesy of DMLC Racing Channel. So you're taking home some wristwear, I guess you can say, here from this race. So that's got to feel good for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good consolation. Actually, I feel like finishing with 0Xs is probably more of an accomplishment than winning the race would have been. I was honestly trying not to even think about it. I scraped the wall a couple times in the first run and figured it was probably I'd already gotten a 1X, but I was trying not to focus on that because as soon as I start looking at that, that's when I'll put myself on the wall. But that's awesome. Thanks to Mark for putting on such a fun race.
All right, well, Daniel, it's a tradition here on 3Y TV that the last thing we get to do with each driver that we interview, they get a chance to thank the guys who got you there. You mentioned Adam Young. Who else was played a role in getting you here in this race tonight?
Well, I guess everybody on Riding Shotgun Motorsports that keep me coming here to race and week in and week out with the other leagues, and Mark and Corey again for putting on such a fun race. And I'm definitely going to start looking into their leagues because this group of guys was a lot of fun to race with tonight for sure.
Well, hopefully we see you here more often on 3Y TV in the future. Daniel Knight, a third place here in the More Power 150. Congratulations.
Thank you, Greg.
All right, well, that is going to be it for our third place finisher. And I know we've stolen his thunder just a little bit, but let's see if we can get a quick word with the man who gave out the watches here tonight. That being the number 39 machine of Mark Cohn. Mark, race didn't go exactly the way you wanted it to, finishing back there in 17th, but I'm sure you had a lot of fun. We're hearing from all the other drivers finishing up there in the top three that they had a lot of fun. First off, tell us about your night, and then tell the folks about the watches that these drivers will be getting.
Oh, man. Gosh, the race tonight, I just wanted to have some fun, and I definitely did. It was sure tough, and I did knock the wall down once tonight, so it definitely wasn't easy, but we made it home in one piece. I botched the fuel strategy. I thought there would be a yellow, which of course there wasn't because these guys were fantastic. I mean, one yellow in 100 laps. Are you kidding me? And as far as these watches, well, I went through my personal collection and found a couple of racing chronographs, which they aren't the most expensive things in the world by any means, but they are pretty nice. And I think these guys are going to absolutely love them.
Well, I think you've been dubbed the Watchman, and any watch from the Watchman is going to be a prized possession. I'm sure they're going to be pretty excited to have them. Of course, Daniel Knight picking up the random draw for getting a 0X, and of course, tonight's race winner, Mike Rasmus, picking up a watch as well. So very, very cool, Mark. And of course, the big question is going to be, and Greg and I mentioned this right towards the end of the race, is, man, we want to see more of this. Any chances of any more power 150s coming up in the future?
I'm thinking of making this an annual tradition, man. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have the time to host a fully fledged series. I mean, American Sim Racing Series, Jim, Sam, if you guys want to do this, by all means. They, of course, Sam hosted the sessions and everything, but I'm thinking at the very least for this channel, a yearly tradition because it was so successful. But yeah, if there was a series of this, I'd be in. I'd want to race.
Well, I'll tell you what, you threw this one together in about 6 days, just under a week. Great showing of drivers, over 20 cars in the field, one caution. Very, very, very impressive race. A lot of fun here to watch on 3Y TV, and we hope all the people watching at home enjoyed it as well. And Jim's listening. He's in the chat, so, hopefully he can take some of those words to heart. And who knows, we might be seeing these cars back in American Sim Racing Series action at some point. But, Mark, congratulations on a very well put together event in the time frame, and it definitely went well. It's probably more than as good as you could have hoped for in that number 39 here tonight at Homestead-Miami. So best of luck, Mark. I'm sure we'll see you again here on 3Y TV soon. Before we go, any shout-outs?
Gosh, just everyone that put together. I mean, you, Peter, for coming on and broadcasting this. Of course, as I said before, Sam Maxwell hosting and live adminning everything. And Corey Silva, who did so much coordinating, which I'm not sure I would have been able to do myself. It's just 6 days and we had this happen. Sim racing is such a fun hobby, and I wouldn't have dreamt of something like this happening, but it did. So thank you to everyone that made it possible. This was wonderful.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, like I said, I'm sure we'll see you again soon here on the channel. Best of luck there, buddy. And, new season of American Sim Racing Series, not all too far off. I know you're not going to be running the Premier Series next year, but hopefully we'll get to see you in some of the special events and see you back on the channel soon.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure as always.
All right, well, that is going to do it for our post-race interviews. Great to have Mark Cohn on there. But, Greg, it's about time for us to bring up the final race results. So, Greg, why don't you take it away?
How about it for Mike Rasmus leads the most laps tonight with 47 of them tonight to get the win, getting the lead away from Jason Stewart with 2 laps to go to pick up the win in the More Power 150, with Daniel Knight rounding out the podium in third. He led 1 lap tonight. Michael Larkin, Woody Mahan rounded out the top 5. How about Jordan Harnish in the number 10, getting up there to 6th place on those fresh tires, leading the first 20 laps of the race before having some issues with the wall, but he comes home in 6th after a nice recovery. Nice job for him. Michael Krobach and Michael Whiting, 2 Michaels that we're used to seeing on 3Y TV, they came home in 7th and 8th. Nice recovery for Whiting as well after having to take the fast repair after being caught up in that only caution of the day. Creighton Carter and Justin Weaver rounded out the top 10, Peter.
Finishing the 11th position, the number 89 of Jeff Yenish, who was definitely saving fuel at the end. We heard from Jason Stewart. He ran out of fuel as he went across the line. I believe Yenish was probably a little bit shorter on fuel. He succumbs to an 11th place finish after all that. Scott Holmes in the number 67. Didn't really talk all too much about him. Kind of a quiet night from the 67, coming home in 12th. Adam Young in the 21 there. A lucky number 13 for the 21 machine. Chris Lanini, who was up there inside the top 5 early on in the show. He is down there in 14th after things all settled down. Larry Orn, also familiar face here on 3Y TV, finishing in 15th. Daniel Gutierrez involved in that one and only caution flag that we had here tonight. The number 4 finishes 16th. Mark Cohn, we just talked to him. Didn't have the fuel strategy figured out here tonight in the 39 car, but finishes 17th. Corey Silva, who was in a hole from the very start of the race, he fell 2 laps down and couldn't ever really recover from that in that number 24 machine. Not quite sure if it was connection issues or what, but unfortunately for Corey, one of the drivers who was able to put this all together, and definitely couldn't see that number 24 machine finishing that far down the order after being very strong in practice. So tough night for him. Howard Strother Jr. in the 48 machine finishing in the 19th position, also 2 laps down. And Nicholas Curling in the number 10. It shows number 25 there, but he ran the number 10 car here tonight. He rounds out the top 20. Something must have happened to him right there towards the end of the race. Not sure if he ran out of fuel or what, but he finishes 8 laps down, Greg.
And rounding out the field for this one will be Joshua Biddle in the number 80. We saw him have some speed in the middle of the race. Brian Greenlee, he hit the wall early in the race, right around lap 70 or so, which took him out of contention. Tyler Graff was the final car that took the green flag. He had issues right around the halfway point and comes home with a 23rd place finish. Steve Yenish, Steve Buhala, and Todd Kirkwood did not take the green flag. 26 cars entered the race. 23 took the green flag. What a show that was, Peter. That was some of the best racing we've seen on 3Y TV in quite some time.
Yeah, definitely. It was a spectacular one here in the More Power 150 presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. I very much enjoyed every single lap here tonight, Greg, and I'm hoping this comes back next year. Very much hoping for it because it was a whale of a time. Before we go here on 3Y TV, we want to give a big shout out to our friends over at Sim TV, Mark Cohn, the DMLC Racing Channel, Corey Silva for putting this together, as well as a lot of the folks over from the American Sim Racing Series, as well as the Lionheart Racing Series, both a lot of those drivers coming out to show a little bit of support for Mark Cohn, as well as Corey Silva to put this all together. But you know what? Sim TV, they give us these wonderful camera packages that we can give you each and every week here on 3Y TV. Big shout out to them as well. But Greg, before we go, any final thoughts?
My final thought is my one and only final thought. And we've been hitting this all night long, and I'm going to say it one more time. More Car Tomorrow races. That was fun.
I'll say it. More power, please. You guys all have a good night. We'll see you again here on 3Y TV soon. We're back in action here on the channel tomorrow night for some NSRA Simbox Truck Series action at Twin Ring Motegi. Don't want to miss that one, so make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss it, because that's going to be a stellar race. But for myself, Peter Short, and Greg Renz, we bid each and every one of you good night, and we shall see ya.